Chapter 15. The Year of 1974. The year 1974 remains etched in my memory like a season of light and shadow interwoven. I was 16 years old, sophomore at Xuân High School in Đà Lạt. From the outside, it seemed as though my life was filled with ordinary rhythms of youth, school, friendships, books, and laughter. But inside and in the larger world around us, the ground was shifting. The war that had dragged us on for so long was now tightening its grip on every corner of Vietnam. The news carried the voice of President Nguyễn Văn Thiệu, his speeches filled with defiance and resolve, yet behind the words lingered a note of desperation that no one could mistake. In our home, 21st 1 Yersin Street, life went on in its fragile, beautiful way. Moments of laughter, of quiet study, of meals together beneath the roof have seen so many seasons. Yet the war's presence was no longer distant. It pressed closer like a shadow that grew longer with each passing day. Our country under siege, Vietnam in 1974. By 1974, the Paris Peace Accords signed the previous year had lost their promise of peace. Everyone knew it, even the children. Fighting intensified across provinces, from the Central Highlands down to the Mekong Delta. Each day the newspapers brought more grim reports. District lost, villages abandoned, casualties mounting. I remember sitting by the TV in the evenings, the voice of President Thiệu steady yet heavy. He urged the people to hold on, to resist, to believe in South Vietnam's endurance. But his words, though strong, seemed unable to cover the truth that lived in every household. The American aid that once flowed freely was dwindling. The strength of the army was stretched thin, and the burden grew heavier on every family with sons at the front. Neighbors spoke in hushed voices for the possibility of northern offensive, about shortages of fuel and rice. Prices in the market rose, and though Đà Lạt was safer than many cities, the tension was palpable. Mothers whispered prayers, fathers fell silent in their worries, and children listened quietly, pretending not to understand why their hearts absorbed the fear. At 16, I stood on the threshold of adulthood. My classmates and I laughed, studied, and dreamed of our futures, but beneath it all lay an unspoken awareness. The world we knew could collapse at any moment. The house with 14 guava trees. Our home on Yersin Street was more than just walls and a roof. It was a sanctuary. In its yard grew 14 guava trees, each with its own character. Some bore fruit that was small and sweet. Others produced larger guavas with pale flesh, fragrance, and crisp. The branches leaned into each other like a family, shading yard with their green canopy. I remember summer afternoons when the sun filtered through the leaves, casting a playful dance on shadows on the ground. We children would climb up, balancing on branches, our hands sticky with guava juice. Mother would sometimes scold us for shaking down unripe fruit, but her voice always softened when she saw our faces glowing with laughter. Those guava trees seemed eternal then, firmly rooted, unshaken by winds of war. They were part of our identity, part of the Nguyễn family story, witnesses our joys and sorrows, even when the world outside felt uncertain. The trees whisper of continuity and life. A litter of puppies. That year, our German Shepherd dog, Ned, means sweet, gave birth to a litter of puppies. At first, the sight of them filled us with delight. Tiny, plied their whimpers, so fragile. We gathered around them as though they were treasures, each one a promise of joy. Soon came the disappointment. They were not purebred. Their features were mixed, their markings different from what father and mother had expected. Practicality, that stumped visitor in every wartime household, entered our yard. We could not afford to keep them all. Food was scarcer, and every mouth to feed mattered. So the decision was made. The puppies would be taken to the animal shelter. I remember the day clearly. We placed them gently in a box, their small bodies squirming, their cries piercing my heart. One by one, we say goodbye. It felt cruel, though necessary. My chest ached as I tried to stay quiet, but inside I was torn and crying. Raising a mixed litter is not a wise thing to do, and his decision is final. My mother begged him to keep one. Only one remained with us. She had a spirit that stood out even from birth, bold, lively, her fur tinged with a reddish hue. She named her Red. She became ours, our consolation, our companion, who reminded us of joy we had lost, but also the love that still remained. Red grew quickly, chasing us around the yard, curling beside us during chilly evenings. She became more than a pet. She was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in times of loss, something could be saved, something could still grow. She was accompanied with our other black Chihuahua dog, which my parents had had for several years. They became a pair of best friends to each other and to us. They were part of our family, and we grew up together. A picnic at Tháp Bren, the loss of our dog with not on of 1974 was sorrow and shadow. That year our family took a picnic to Tháp Bren, the waterfall that cascaded just outside Đà Lạt, surrounded with lush forest and the sound of rushing water. I remember the laughter as we spread our mat, unpacked food, and watched the younger sibling run along the rocks. The air was cool, filled with scents of pine and water. We sang songs, shared stories, and for a moment it felt as the world's troubles were far away. Our little Chihuahua, Wit, the name from the French word wit, number 8, came with us that day. She was tiny, spirited, with a bark louder than her size suggested. She ran freely across the grass, tail wagging, her joy infectious, but in the freedom of open space she slipped away. We called such, our voice echoing through the trees. We walked the paths, hearts pounding with hope that she would return, but the hours passed and she never came back. That evening we drove home with an empty space in our car and in our hearts. I personally felt so hurt, so sad, and I felt like a piece of my heart was missing. That night I cried all night. I prayed. I thought a lot about love, about life. The loss of such a small creature may seem insignificant against the backdrop of war, yet to us its worth profound. She has been part of our family, part of our daily rhythm. Losing her was like losing a piece of innocence, a reminder that in times of turmoil, even a smallest joy could be taken away. Youth in the midst of uncertainty. As the year went on, school became both a refuge and a reminder of fragile state of our country. At Bùi Thị Xuân, I immersed myself in studies, literature, and friendships. My teachers urged us to work hard, to prepare for the future, though in their eyes I sometimes caught the shadow of doubt. What future could they promise us when the nation itself trembled? We girls still wore our white áo dài, still walked in pairs along the schoolyard, still whisper secrets and dreams, but in the background of our conversations lay the unspoken knowledge that our brothers were at the front and our fathers bore the weight of worry, that each day could bring news which shatter lives. The newspapers reported victories and losses in equal measure. Sometimes the headlines spoke of heroic defense, other times of district loss. President Thiệu appeared often on the media, his words urging determination, his image one of strength, yet in private conversations, people began to question, could he hold the country together without American support? Was the end drawing near? At 16, I did not understand the depth of political strategy, but I felt the tremors. I felt it, the silences at dinner, and the hurried prayers of neighbors, and the heaviness that lay over the town like an unseen fog. Nights of listening. At night I study by the glow of the lamp, the radio murmuring in the background. Sometimes it carried music, songs of longing and love, songs that spoke of separation. Other times it carried news bulletins, the voices clipped, urgent. I listened to both, my heart caught between the innocence of youth and the weight of reality. The dogs barked outside, the guava trees rusted in the wind, and I felt both safe and unsettled. Safe within the walls of our home, within the laughter of siblings and warmth of parents, unsettled because I knew the world beyond was unraveling, and sooner or later it would reach even our misty city. A year of foreshadowing. Looking back, I see 1974 as the year of foreshadowing. The signs were there, though we tried to ignore them. The country was weakening under pressure, the leadership strength, the people weary. Yet for me, it was almost a year of turning 16, of wearing my áo dài with pride and tending to guava trees, of laughing with siblings and keeping red clothes, of crying for the lost chihuahua, of trying to capture moments of joy even as storm gathered. It was the last full year before everything changed, and perhaps that is why it shines so vividly in memory, the sweetness of youth against the bitterness of war, the fragile beauty of family life against the backdrop of collapsing nation. When I close my eyes and return to 1974, I see the last mist. I hear President Thiệu steady but heavy voice on the radio. I smell the guavas ripening in our yard. I see red chasing our feet. I feel the ache of letting go of her siblings. I hear our calls echoing through top brand when we search in vain for our chihuahua. With I see myself 16 years old in my white áo dài, carrying both laughter and sorrow, both dreams and fears. That year in all its contradictions, became one of the most profound chapters of my life, of the Nguyễn family story. It was the year of innocent preserved and innocent lost, the joy found and the joy stolen, and holding on while the world slipped away. The end of chapter 15, to be continued.
Tell me all about this name, and it's difficult to say. It was given me the day I